The day my fingers fell off, I was at the pharmacy. My thumb rolled down the counter to the digital scale and rang up 1 cent. My index finger fell on the floor with some of my change. I picked them up with my other hand and put them into my breast pocket and counted out clumsy coins. The cashier looked annoyed, and people behind me sighed and clucked their impatient tongues. I walked quickly to the automatic door, leaving a trail of rolling digits behind, like breadcrumbs in the forest, shading my eyes with one of my stumps, and at the wrist like a caveman club. I fell and bumped my nose against a stop sign, knocking my right eye loose, landing like an overripe grape, bouncing off athletic shoes. My elbow pinched twisted, like melted glass, and broke, pirouetted against buckling knees, kicked ahead of me as I began to run. No one noticed as my trembling legs gave way, and my head dropped from my shoulders, kicked like a hairy soccer ball in some macabre slapstick gag in an old silent movie. No one saw as my chest collapsed, crumpled like newspaper trash, stomach splitting open like a soggy sack of beans. No one stopped or glanced as I came undone like a house of cards, caught by a sudden freeze on a cold day's dry picnic table, a pile of loose limb fragments and tattered torso traces, bloodless, painless puzzle pieces, dropped into cold cement cracks by passing hurried feet, or down like sand dunes in a desert storm.
As they move into the average level, 4s take on a social role and begin to define themselves as the special one, the person who's exempt from the rules and the way things are ordinarily done. Like other types, once they adopt a social role, 4s find that they're not comfortable around others unless they're in this role. Ironically, this makes average 4s increasingly uncomfortable around others, and others uncomfortable around them. But 4s not only defend this self-image, they try to get others to reinforce it in various ways. They take an artistic, aesthetic, romantic orientation to life. They enjoy listening to music, decorating their homes, and dressing in ways that evoke a strong sense of image and mood. Average 4s also begin to long for a romantic partner to share their life with, but often feel disappointment when others fail to live up to their fantasies. Real people are never as satisfying as those created in their imaginations. Dissatisfaction with reality increases, and so does dissatisfaction with themselves and their own life. To stay in touch with their feelings, average 4s begin to internalize everything, but this causes them to take everything personally. As they become less sure of themselves, they become self-absorbed, introverted, and moody. Their shyness and self-consciousness becomes acute, and they begin to experience even harmless comments as potential insults. "You look great" can mean, "She must think I usually look hideous." They become unable to be spontaneous or to get outside of themselves. Yet average 4s remain socially withdrawn to protect the vulnerable self and to sort out their mixed, increasingly negative feelings. Furthermore, average 4s use their pain both as a way to reinforce their identity as someone who's different and as a way of trying to make others feel guilty and responsible for them. It's ironic, but 4s keep people away with their withdrawals and withholding of attention, and yet are actually demanding attention by these very behaviors. Their dramatic demand to be alone is itself a bid for attention. They'd like someone to follow them into their lair of loneliness and rescue them. Low average 4s gradually feel completely and painfully different from others, and therefore exempt from living as others do. They feel that the rules and expectations of ordinary life don't apply to them. "I do what I want to do when I want to do it" becomes their theme song. And they're convinced that no one else understands them, although they still hope that someone will try. Self-pity leads to self-indulgence, and 4s become melancholic dreamers, decadent and sensual, living in a fantasy world that repels any kind of pressure or intrusion. They feel that they're not up to it when called on for practical action, and tend to postpone or avoid social contacts and professional deadlines as long as possible. They respond to any questioning of their impractical lifestyle with disdain and anger, and can be pretentious, unproductive, and highly temperamental. If average 4s get into serious conflicts with themselves others, and reality, they'll likely develop emotional and psychological problems and may move into the unhealthy levels of development. When their dreams fail, unhealthy 4s become furious at themselves and at the people who are still in their lives. They're enraged at anyone who's disappointed them, especially their parents. Most of all, they're enraged at themselves. Even so, unhealthy 4s are terrified of expressing the depth of their hostility and do their best to hold it in. This causes them to become blocked, depressed, and emotionally paralyzed with self-inhibitions. They feel impotent, cut off from their own power, and unable to do anything worthwhile for themselves, much less sustain efforts on their own behalf. The inability to express themselves leads to further alienation. Deeply troubled 4s are ashamed of themselves, fatigued, and unable to function. Tormented by delusional self-contempt, self-hatred, and morbid thoughts, everything adds to their self-reproach. They despair, feel hopeless, and become self-destructive, possibly abusing alcohol or drugs to escape. They may be suicidal. At the other end of the spectrum, very high-functioning 4s are profoundly creative, expressing the personal and the universal, possibly through art, but also in their daily lives. They're in touch with the ever-changing nature of reality and are inspired by it. Very high-functioning 4s are able to renew and regenerate themselves again and again, transforming even their most painful experiences into something beautiful and valuable that others can benefit from as well. As adults, 4s continue to identify with being alone and misunderstood. They're often creative outsiders, and they're proud of it. The 9-to-5 corporate life is usually not for them. They may run their own company as long as there's a creative component to their work and it's emotionally satisfying. Or they may be a counselor or a therapist of some kind. 4s are often professional artists, writers, or teachers. Above all, 4s want their life to be a work of art. They want to achieve something beautiful despite the loneliness, suffering, and despair they've so often felt.
I'm talking about passion.
At least that's their hope.
I'm talking about passion.
And their fantasy.
It's alright. There comes a time. Got no patience to search for peace
is NCN.